Well, good afternoon, YouTube. Phil King here, and today we're talking about arguably the most iconic classic cocktail, the top of the classics, the number one of the top 10 classic cocktails. We're talking about the SAZERAC. I feel it is the greatest drink because there are many different reasons. This has a long historical significance to it. It was one of the first of the classic cocktails, and it really brought about change in the industry as well as the way we were drinking spirits. This also happened, and it was probably one of the first recorded drinks in the early 1800s. We saw most of our cocktail boom between the mid to late 1800s, so this one was really the front runner, and it really laid the groundwork for how we drink spirits today and the format in which they're built. The roots of this cocktail are etched in French history. And in the early 1700s, as America was developing its continent, the Europeans saw great opportunity in this new land. They left the European Union kind of out of the French area and traveled through the Atlantic Ocean, making their way through the French Caribbean islands, only to end up into the New Orleans region of Louisiana, where they developed the French colony that they called the French Quarters. And those French Quarters were a hub. And that hub was a hub for food and culinary and spirits that were brought in, as well as a trade exit through the islands and back to Europe with beautiful American goods, as well as spices from the islands. So it was a very important time of development in the early 1700s of the American nation. And of course, one of the things that they brought with them were the great Cognacs and Armagnacs of the region, great spirits from the Cognac region of France. These were distilled brandies, basically grape juice that was distilled into a brandy. It was absolutely beautiful. They'd been making it there for quite some time. And if you recall, the early 1700s was really just an experimental phase for American whiskeys. So it was not good and it was not well developed. Most of it was in the Pennsylvania area, and it was mostly developed through rye whiskeys. And it would take another 50 years or so before American whiskeys really start to become in fashion and almost palatable. So of course, these were some of the first things that were brought over. And in the early 1800s, a French cognac called SAZERAC de Forges et Fils, which is a group of SAZERAC group. They owned many different beautiful vineyards. And Sons, so it's SAZERAC family and Sons. And they brought over one of the very first cognacs that was introduced into the French Quarters, and it became very popular. This fine cognac was brought into the French Quarters and ultimately landed at the Merchants Exchange Coffee House. This was a type of apothecary of the time, very popular, that sold not only coffee and teas, but also wines and spirits and elixirs. And at that house, they actually formulated a cocktail using the SAZERAC de Forges et Fils. And that cocktail was a typical cocktail of the time. Those cocktails were formed with a base of spirits, a little bit of bitters, and some sugars. The exception to this particular cocktail is that they spritzed it with a little bit of absinthe and then finished it with a touch of lemon. And that was how that drink became fashioned. It was very popular. In fact, it became so popular that the drink was named after the cognac. Obviously, the drink now is called the SAZERAC. And in fact, the Merchants Exchange in the late 1850s changed their name to the SAZERAC House. And so that's the popularity behind the drink between the 1830s and the 1850s. Another very important part of this cocktail, leading to the historical importance of it, is Antoine Pichon. And Antoine Pichon was a Creole who lived on the islands. He particularly lived in Haiti, and he made bitters. Bitters were elixirs that at the time were mostly used for medicinal purposes, but they realized that the bitters mixed well with the spirits. A lot of these islanders, as the French was coming through, would jump on the boats because they had goods and they had products that they wanted to bring over into the Americas. So Antoine Pichon was one of those great vendors who brought his Pichon bitters over into New Orleans and into the French Quarter as well. And he started making these beautiful Pichon bitters. This was a really rich Caribbean Creole style bitters, very typical of the time, and just added perfect flavor to this particular cocktail. So an integral part of this particular cocktail is the Pichant bitters, and I feel you can't make this cocktail without Pichant bitters in it. Side note, popular myth believes that this cocktail was served in the large end of an egg cup. Those egg cups the French called cocktail. Americans, unable to pronounce the word cocktail, simply called it a cocktail, and that's where the word derived from. Disaster struck this fine cocktail in the late 1870s when France was infected with phylloxera. Phylloxera is a very tiny microscopic organism that eats grapevines and affects the cardiovascular and the reproducibility of the plant. And it really took over and held all of the French vines, as well as the beautiful French vines in the Cognac region, and pretty much production came to a halt after that. So by the late 1800s, this Cognac spirit had actually been replaced by the American rye whiskey, which was growing in popularity and demand, as well as becoming quite a fine spirit. The second blow to this drink happened in 1915 when absinthe was banned due to its chemical compound thorogene. Thorogene was thought to be dangerous and addictive. It had psychoactive hallucinogens and was banned in America and was not actually made legal again until 1990. The anisette flavor that the absinthe brought in was replaced by a lower proof anise liqueur known as a Herbsaint. After all of this, the cocktail kind of diminished in its popularity a little bit, especially with the inception of other great cocktails like the Old Fashions or the Manhattans. If you think about it, they're really based in that same spirit, bitters, and sugar kind of forward recipe. And there was just more to choose from and more opportunity for the people to drink. The SAZERAC is so important to Louisiana that in 2008, it was actually declared the official state drink. So stick around, I'm gonna make this drink for you now. I'm gonna make the original version of the SAZERAC, and what I feel is the greatest of the classic cocktails, and a drink that inspired all other drinks behind it. So we'll go ahead and get this drink going with our Cognac, our absinthe, and of course our Pichant bitters, and then some sugar, and of course a little bit of lemon peel. For the glassware, we're gonna be using our beautiful Yari mixing glass, as well as a rocks glass that will go ahead and chill with ice. The final drink does not contain any ice, so we want a nice cold glass to start off with. And to our Yari mixing glass, we're gonna add 1 sugar cube, and to that, we're gonna go ahead and douse it with these beautiful Pichant bitters. I'm gonna go ahead and let that bitters absorb into the cube a little bit. I do like to break down the cube just to kind of help the absorption and help the sugar incorporate a little bit more into the drink. And to this, we're gonna add our Camus Cognac. I love this Cognac. This is Camus. This is a beautiful Cognac from the Borderies region of Cognac. This is their Elegance VS. So this is a very nice fine Cognac, and we'll add 2 ounces of this Cognac to the drink. Two ounces of fine Cognac, at what point we're gonna go ahead and chill this drink. Believe it or not, this is about all of the drink that there is. A very simple, easy to make drink. There is some nice complications involved in the build. So the build is in particular, you have to pay attention to how that comes together. So, but anyways, we're gonna stir this drink. We're gonna stir this 30 times. So it needs coldness and it needs dilution. And right now it's blending those sugars and those bitters with Cognac. And it's really just cooling it down and also adding a little bit of dilution from the ice. So spin that 30 times up and down in the carousel method. From here, we're gonna go ahead and dump our rocks glass. We don't need those anymore. And now we're going to also give this what they call it absinthe rinse. So this is absinthe ordinaire. We're gonna pour about 1/2 ounce into the glass. at what point we'll swirl and dump. You can use the atomizer. As you see, I have an atomizer there in the corner. Sometimes those work really well, but that's it. We're gonna strain this drink. I like to shake it up a little bit, get those sugar molecules moving around. I'm gonna strain and shake this drink into the rocks glass. And then we're gonna garnish it with a little bit of lemon peel. Take that lemon peel and just try to get to the zest only, and give it a quick little spritz over the top of the cocktail. I like to rim the glass with a little bit of those oils as they come up and squeeze it again. Don't put the peel directly into the drink. Just kind of set it off to the side on the rim there, and let the customer decide on whether they want to drop it into the drink. But that's it. That's the cup, and that's the glass, and that's the drink. So that's the beautiful SAZERAC. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a great time, and we'll be seeing you again soon. Thank you.